Hi everyone. We're going to continue our lecture on elevations. Last week we talked more about interior elevations and multi-view drawings and also how to use orthographic projection to create them. Well, we're going to continue our study. We're going to take it outside the building to exterior elevations using orthographic projection and other details to create very professional drawings and things to consider. So let's get started. So this week, orthographic projections and exterior elevations. And we want to really focus on some of these specific vocab words, things you've heard before in the past, elevation drawings, building elevations, what that looks like. And that's what we'll be diving into today. Some of the graphic cues, selection resources, some elevation orientation, some textures. We're going to talk a little bit about section cuts and windows and, some of these terms here, what a pictorial zone is, various line weights, line types. A lot of this is review. We'll talk a little bit about walls and doors and roofing materials and so forth. So let's get started. So this week we'd like you to learn, and our student learning outcomes are that we hope that you'll develop an understanding of elevation drawings and convey vertical elements and delineations. Also, we want you to further develop your understanding of orthographic projection in relation to plan drawings. Also, to further develop your understanding of line weights and material representations. And the methods of achieving this will be done in our assignments. So we did talk about this and touch on elevation drawings. Basically, general subject info, elevation drawings as a refresher using orthographic projection. So basically, we're taking a vertical view of something and we're able to extend lines to create another view. So this view is perpendicular to the picture plane. So when we have a plan view that is parallel, and as we project the lines outward, they're perpendicular, they create a different viewpoint. So this provides an upright view of the surface. Remember, we're like tilting a wall up, and that's what an elevation is. So elevations do not delineate. It's hard to tell depth. They do not show depth. So we have to do things to give graphic cues of depth when we are creating interior and exterior elevations. We have to create some interest, and how that's done is through different line weights and material hatches that we use. So building elevations, or another word for building elevations, is exterior elevations. We use this, and we have all done this in class. I gave you an exercise of orthographically creating exterior elevations. And you have to make sure that you're looking and standing from the outside in. It's different viewpoint than interior. So building elevations or exterior elevations, we use orthographic projection and the info from orthographic projection to create them. The view image is onto a picture plane. So we put this image onto that space that we get to draft on. And when we project, we're able to create different views. And I will walk you through this on our project so that becomes more clear. But building elevations, they illustrate an exterior building and their appearance. And, we really give special detail to the exterior. We emphasize exterior vertical faces of a building, and we delineate the different silhouettes. So we really try to define, that's what that means. We define those silhouettes of the building in the form, basically the shape and the outline. And we do that mainly through line weight. And we visually describe construction elements through using pattern, parts or placements and textures of material. So as we're getting into our elevations, and I think you'll really enjoy this after you've already done some interior elevations, is getting to the exterior and seeing what that looks like, creating the magic, bringing it to life by adding some of those interesting hatches that we practiced of different wood grains, maybe brick, stone. You will be utilizing those skills into these exterior elevations. So as we continue, the building elevations or exterior elevations, we will orthographically project information. Now, what information? We're going to use information from the plan view or floor plan. And as you create one elevation, you will actually orthographically project from that elevation to create yet another view. And I'll show you later on in the slides. So views image onto the picture plane. So we will be able to see these multiple images on your drawing based on the way that we are able to project all these lines to create a vertical image. The emphasis is on the exterior vertical faces of buildings. And we want to make the shape in the outline very defined by using a very heavy line weight. And this will help us to discover what is going on with the space. It will make it have depth. Now, one of the key things is making sure that we have the right orientation of an elevation. So that's the position of your wall. And it usually, as I spoke before, it's usually in conjunction with north, south, east, and west. But we want to show what is the ground, where is the different sides, and we do this by creating different line weights. So the orientation is parallel to the picture plane. So here you have your picture plane. And we want to make sure that we are creating surfaces that are very outlined and detailed. Now, often we might foreshorten some walls and so forth, and we want to do that to give it some depth. But we often will put a very heavy line at the bottom. This creates a ground mask, letting you know that this is mounted on the ground. So a heavy line at the very bottom is extremely important when doing exterior elevations. It gives us the indication that this is the ground or earth. So it's a very heavy line. We also make sure the outside structure is got a nice heavy line to indicate it is structural. So when we start to look at some building elevations versus, let's say, a site section may be a section, we look at some of the graphic clues around what's going on the elevation. So we look at the adjacent conditions. And we may see in a site plan is when you are looking down and you see where it is located in conjunction with the land around it. And what are some adjacent forms? Maybe trees, maybe other mountains or architectural objects. So when we look at our building and we look at the site and we see the different components, whether it's landscape in that, we like to add those components into our exterior elevations. So it is important that we include that to give it more of a realistic view of what's going on. So elevation arrangement orientation, as I said, we want to take a look at some of these drawings here. This would be your multi-view drawings right here. Here are each one of these elevations in a line. And then here is what we took a plan view and tilted it, and we show these elevations in a three-dimensional way. This is called an isometric drawing or a paraline drawing. We will be doing that later on in the semester. So how we arrange this. So it says, when you observe your project, it all really revolves around your plan view, okay? So once that plan view is in the middle and you bring out those lines like we did in the past, this is the key. You want to make sure that you have a true north. So you identify each elevation as north and south, east and west. This makes it so that there's no confusion And it all starts with this north arrow that I told you must be on every plan. If you rotate your space, make sure you rotate your arrow so that it is true north, so there's no confusion. Now, elevate. So you view a series of vertical, their elevations are really a series of vertical pictures, right? And they wrap around. So they have all four sides of a building. And this helps us to get more of a model or a three-dimensional view of a space when we start to see all four sides. But the truth is, when we see one side, we really can't tell the depth of it. We can't tell these little idiosyncrasies, these little things. So we need all the different sides to create that look. So vertical and oblique planes, they connect like right here, and they create a series of, let's say, like a skin or a shell around the building. So this is a fascinating process, and we'll do this. We start off this way. We take these elevations and we put them in a linear form, and then we will end up connecting each one of these to create a three-dimensional object. Here's an example. So if you have a floor plan or a plan view, now remember, this is exterior. So this wouldn't be so much the floor plan cut at 4 feet and we're seeing the bottom of it. In this situation, we are looking at a plan view from the roof. So if I were a bird in the sky and I was looking down, that's what we would see in this situation because we're outside of the building. So when we're looking at this plan view, it is called a roof view. Okay, so as we look at the roof view right here, this is the ceiling, right here, the roof. You will take, this is the north, this is north, south, east, and west. If you actually cut these all out and glued them around the corner of each corner, you would make a little model. So we will be projecting, see the door here? You see it here. See this little line there that represents the wall? It jags in and it comes out. You cannot tell that by just this view. You have to have the plan view. Here, once again, you would have a line here and it would L-shape into these back little teeny windows, and there they are. Here is a door swing, and there is your door right there. That little teeny triangle right here, that little teeny, that point there, showing where the hinge meets on the door. Over here represents, as you orthographically project these lines, the two doors that are represented right here. And even though this is upside down, you would project these lines and you've got 1, 2, 3 doors on this side. Once you have these elevations, you need to place them in a row that we can see them. No one wants to twist their head and try to rotate and see what those look like. But this is one way, and we all did it in class, and you had an assignment to show how we could project. This will be very useful for you in AutoCAD especially. And so when we do our arrangement, like I said, we want to consider the orientation via the north arrow right here. So arrange elevations, a series of sequences. We have to make sure they're sequential. That means they're in order. Now, maybe it's, maybe it's just going clockwise and you're going to go north, east, south, and west. Some people maybe name them A, B, C, D, or even 1, 2, 3, 4. The point being is when you name your elevations, you make them sequential, whether it means they're in order. North, what's the next thing next to north? East, and then you have south, and then you have west. You have to make sure you're in order. If you choose the alphabet, you have elevation A, then you should have elevation B and C in order. You don't mix them up. That's the rule of thumbs. Each architectural design firm will have their own style of doing it. So I just want you to know there are a variety of ways, but make sure each elevation is labeled in a sequence. So you see, we have had a plan view of the roof. They created all 3 of these elevations. Then they took 2 lines, top and a ground line, and they place them right in order. So they start to make sense. So that's what we will be doing as well. We will have 2 rows like we did for the interior elevations. You have a row and you will put them parallel to the picture plane, just like that. So you have to make sure that your orientation is all in order. Like I said, here they did north, west, south, east, etc. Also, we also like to make sure that, they have, they could possibly have any features that are predominant and important that we make sure we give great detail to. So this is important. If there is a feature like maybe a beachfront or a mountain view that actually, or a main street that actually may be somewhere on the site plan and may be noted on this area to give us an idea of what we're looking at. You also may even name elevations. Elevation A, beachfront view. Elevation B, main street view. So it depends. Sometimes that helps us to know exactly what view we're looking at and where. So that's another way we can label our exterior elevations. Now, scale and details. We've talked about this about interior details, and it is common sense, but let's go over that. Design drawings, they're different information in different scales, of course. We've done seen 1/8-inch scale drawings, which are very small, and we now are working in 1/4-inch drawings. The larger the drawings, the more detail, as we talked about. The smaller the drawings, the less detail. And we also just really went over that last week. But once you start from the outside in, the outside always gets the darker, heavier lines. And as you work your way in, you go more details. Such as these architectural features have a heavier line than the brick here. Here, at a distance, they didn't necessarily give you all the brick because it would, once you printed it, it would be so small. We also like to put humans near in some of our elevations. This helps us give an indication of scale and really does show how high or low something is in reference. Now, this is the fun part that's different than what we talked about last week. It's a little more intricate. And this is using material representation to make your exterior elevations come alive. We did those hatch exercises for a reason. When you do our project this week of exterior elevations, I will be requiring you to use either a stone or a stacked stone or a brick pattern on the face of your house to make it more interesting. We also may use some interesting shingles, some siding. I want to see some door casings and more architectural features on your exterior of your house. We also make sure we do a nice little roofing where it shows the shingles stacked on each other. All of this gives the exterior elevation life. So we want to make sure we are representing our doors, our windows, all the various, the roofing, by using some of these material representations. And that's why we did all those wonderful hatches. So, you can even, if you've decided maybe you want to use a certain material, look at it, study it, and try to mimic it in your endeavor. I'm giving you a little creative outlet here that you get to design the exterior of the house using some type of finish on it, but I'm kind of letting you choose. But I want it to be consistent across the whole front of the house. And we'll talk further about that as we dive into the demo. But it'll look beautiful once you're done, once you give it that finishing touch of materials on the face. And just some rules to apply to make things look like they have depth. And this is why I stress line weights. Heavy line weights, they're the nearest plane to you. So things that are closer should have a darker line weight if it pops forward. So if you have a projecting part of the building, it should be really dark, the darkest line. As things go backwards, they get lighter. And that's what happens in natural and nature. So the intermediate line weights, those medium, they're for kind of midfield depths, things that are medium distance. And those light line weights are for textures and distant objects. So as you can see here, this is very one note. But as they really start to make this darker and really dark here, they're making this roof kind of pop out because it actually is. Where this line is not as dark as the roof line here because that's closer to us. Also, I want you to notice the ground line here is very dark, anchoring this house, making it very grounded. And that's what we mean by a ground line right here. And that tells us this is the earth. Here, there may be a mountain or a slope in front of the house, creating even further depth because we know this is closer to us because the line is thicker. So line weights do matter, as you can see. Another way to add interest too is the way that you deal with some of your lines. So you will see that we often use sometimes broken or dashed lines. And these, another word for these are called hidden lines or phantom lines. So a broken line or dashed line can also be called a hidden line or a phantom line. Now, we may see these broken lines as we do a landscape in the background that we're just giving a vignette view of, or very light details or things in the background might have some of these incomplete lines. Now, those heavy lines, like I said, is for that base floor line or that ground floor or a section sight line. You'll see that when we do our section next week. And these lightly broken lines are for, see here, a little distance, little trees here and there, maybe for objects or landscapes. Now, remember, the closer something is, the darker the line and the more detailed. But the further away it is, we want to just make it ghosted or vignetted. Now, when we talk about pictorial zones, that's like context and distance. That's what we're talking about. And once again, you know, the foreground plane, your sight section, your graphic base, these are things that are in the foreground that are in front of you. And they often and sometimes will get drafted. So you need to know what those are. And I'll point out some of those details in a later slide. And the facade plane, that's the face of this space right here. You might want to do adjacent landscaping or people and objects next to the facade, the face, just to give it a scale reference. So when you have these different planes, we're trying to give this elevation some depth and some interest. So we add added features just to make it come more alive and make it look more realistic. So closer elements, of course, like I said, are greater detail. Distant objects have little or no detail, but they just might fade away. Here in this exterior elevation, they paid extreme attention to detail. The beautiful shingles and how they're irregular like that really represents like a wood shingle. Here you could see that they have like that shiplap material. It goes all on the face of the second and first floor and continues in the chimney. They also have a detailed rail here and a little piece here that creates a kind of apron or overhang for this slider. Also, they have a little bit of texture over these windows. They have put their lights there and also showed these swinging out windows. They have lower windows and upper windows. So this is a whole window wall right here. Now these hinges, see these little triangles with this little dashed line? We talked about dashed lines. These little dashed lines, these indicate what way the windows swing open. So these swing open, they're connected right here. Down here, you'll see the dashed line pointing in a V. So these swing out to give lower window ventilation. Here again, you see the hinges of where the doors open. They also added details like little diagonal lines to represent glass. So you'll see the dark ground line here, sight line. This makes it so that you know this is the ground. And there's a nice dark line outlining the overall space. And yet the details are very thin lines, but give it interest. So as you see that elevation, it has some depth because of the heaviness of the line. And we're going to add some of these fun materials. Here's another one that we did, my company, and this is more commercial, just to show you what it's like to add even further detail to give it more realization. And let me get that here. So this is the winery, a restaurant we did. Here you even have a woman, she's at the hostess stand. Because this is open, you'll see that we mimicked the stacked stone. We show the open bar here, and you can see a peek to the inside of the space. Here's a television that is accessible for everyone to view outside. There's also an open area here. We have beautiful cut screens from the exterior. This is an overhang, and as you'll see it right here. So you wouldn't know just looking at this vertical view, but when you look at it from the side, you see how it hangs over. We call this an eyebrow, but it's a little hangover. Right there's the sign, and there's the sign. So we have a little eyebrow here, and then this has a very large patio cover. So there's a big patio cover, there's a little eyebrow, and there's the sign, and that's this area here. You'll see that we added trees. It gives us some perspective. These trees are olive trees that are underneath the patio cover. Here's some wind screens and more foliage. So you'll see there's quite a bit of detail. Now this is a CAD drawing, but it's great to learn how to do this in pencil. Here is a great elevation showing a tree, a fire element in stone, and more foliage. And once again, that side view of the sign and the little apron above it. So here's another, that just gives you an idea of what exterior elevations can look like. So there's a massive amount of detail that we add to those, and we give them special attention. So let me walk you through actually how you're going to be doing this. I will be doing the demo, but I want to give you a more clearer graphic right here so that you will know what to prepare for when we start our exterior elevations. So the first thing that we will do on our drawings is you will create a great title block, okay? And you will produce your first elevation. It will be a side view of the home. So how do you use orthographic projection to do that? You will place your little floor plan, the 1/4 inch floor plan that you designed a few weeks ago. You will place, this is the side view that we're going to be doing right here. So you can place it above your drawing and use orthographic projection to show all the architectural features. So now you know where the window is, you know the width of things. This will help you with all the widths of stuff. You'll know how big how wide the house is, how wide this window is, how wide this little porch cover is, and this one as well. But what you don't know is how high things are. I will be giving you a list of heights, how high the walls are on the side, how high the ceiling is, how high the windows are, and how far they are from the floor. Once you have those measurements, you're going to be able to do this entire elevation. So the floor plan gives you all the widths of stuff, so you don't have to remeasure and keep putting your scale back. But you'll have to use your scale when I give you the heights of things. And this will really come in handy when you are putting the drawing on the picture plane. So once again, you will just be orthographic projection, all the widths of this elevation, and then you will use your scale when I give you all the heights of the whole house, how high this is, how high these windows are, how high this is, and the roof line. Now, once you have this beautiful elevation, now you're ready for your second elevation, the front view. You can now use this elevation and this floor plan to create your front elevation without basically having to measure at all now. So you use the floor plan to project up all your widths again, but you can use your elevation to project all of the heights of things. So you see how they could work together. And the more you do this, you realize the less work you have to do when you keep continuing to go around, do all the elevations. So once again, when you're doing your second elevation, you not only use the floor plan, but you can use your elevation you just created to orthographically project in a horizontal way to create all the heights. So we know that window is this high. Now you don't have to measure. You just bring the line across and they're the same across the whole wall. And you know the height here. You know the height of that little point of that entrance, the awning. You know the height of the roof. And now you know the tip and you know the height of the chimney. So that really is going to save you some time and energy. Once you give me these generic elevations, then we're going to have some real fun. You will put some stacked stone up to a certain 4 feet around the two elevations. You're going to give me some shingles or roof treatments. You're able to create whatever kind of stone you want on the chimney. So when we get done, you're going to have 2 exterior elevations, the front view and a side view. You'll be using orthographic projection, first with the plan view for the one, and then for the plan view and the elevation you just did to create the second elevation. This is going to save you time, energy, and it will be accurate. But the key is making sure that floor plan, like I stressed in the beginning, is perfect and to scale, because all the rest of our drawings obviously are being influenced by that one plan. So I hope you found that this is interesting, and it is definitely something that we will continue to do. I will be showing you in the demo. And with that being said, I think we are done with this lecture. So have a great day, and I'll see you at the demo.